When you're a professional speaker or speaking for a part of your profession, whatever that happens to be, there's some important skills that you need. And one of those skills that is really important is acting. And today, we're going to share with you some ideas and some tips that can help you as you're developing in your career, whatever that career is. And to help us out on that, I've got a buddy of mine who's joining us from his offices in Vancouver, Canada, up there in British Columbia. His name is Roger Heskett, and he joins us right now. Roger, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much, Terry. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Well, we are delighted to have you here, and I'm just so looking forward. I've been anxious to see this, put this together, because you've got so much good information about acting. You are an actor, and you're a professional speaker, and I know you put these together. Tell us a little bit first about kind of the Reader's Digest version of your background in both acting, professional speaking, and other areas.
Okay, well, I don't know. We'll see. Cut me off if I go beyond the Reader's Digest version. I'm one of those guys that does a lot of different things. So the first passion I found was teaching. And so the first thing that I expected to do for the rest of my life was teaching. And then I foolishly or wisely took an acting class because I thought I'd teach socials and acting. I thought that was a really good combo. And then I started to fall in love with this acting business. And so I got bit by that bug. And I graduated with a master's in education. At the same time, I had a undergrad as a BFA in acting. And so since then, I've basically been I've figured out ways to take my performance side of my personality and my education side of my personality and sort of morph them into one sort of unified thing, which has taken a long time and has actually been quite an interesting journey. And I did that by doing a whole bunch of different things, pursuing each of them individually. So I'm a film and TV commercial actor. I've been doing that for about 15 or 20 years now. I don't do so much theater anymore as an actor. I do more writing of theater, and I direct theater more and produce theater. And then I sort of put together a company called Engagement Unlimited that works in the event, meeting industry, conference industry, where we look at events through the prism of engagement. So what we do is we always are talking about, is this the best way to maximize engagement? Because with engagement, magic happens in the room. Without engagement, it's just people sort of standing next to each other. So, and then in speaking, so what I did a couple years ago, probably 3 years ago now, I had a client, a big bank, that wanted to do a sort of mini conference that was based around Hollywood North. That's one of Vancouver's nicknames.
I didn't know that. Hollywood North.
Hollywood North, because we're north of Hollywood and we do a lot of filming up here. And so I was walking around thinking, I do a lot of walking around and thinking as a way of coming up with creative ideas. I really believe in movement, which we'll get back to probably later. But so I was moving, and I thought, what I could be doing for this conference, we were doing BizProv, which is using improv, your improv skills in life and in business to improve your life and your business. And I was thinking, what else could I do to offer to offset that? And I thought, well, what about what I offer to actors? Because I've been teaching actors for years and years and years how to walk into really stressful rooms where they want to do magnificent things. And it's really hard to do normal things like breathe. So I thought, well, what does that subject have to do with accountants? Well, it turns out a huge amount, because this is a human issue. Everyone has to deal with stress, and everyone has to deal with the feeling of wanting to connect with people that are really important for you to connect with at exactly the moment when it's hardest for you to connect. So I talk about that, and I use acting as a basis for that, but really it's a human skill, and as a result, all humans can learn it. It doesn't just require actors or artists. Everyone can learn how to walk into rooms with more of their authentic personality present and less of their scared, tight, shrunken personality that often accompanies us into stressful rooms.
Yes, I would agree with you. Yeah, I think that's really important because today, particularly today, we want to be able to communicate whatever we're doing. I think even engineers, scientists, accountants, lawyers, people that you would think normally don't have to put on a particular PR or advertising or marketing as much, they have to today because of the way the world is working. And the skills that you have, they're really important. I would agree with you, like you've got to be able to do that. What are some tips that you could give to people that are saying, okay, I'm not much of an actor, I'm not an actor, I haven't had it before, but they need to do that when they're in business and they go into that room where, hey, it's hard to even breathe. What kind of steps could they take?
Well, there's a couple different things to think about. First of all, the thing is that everyone, like as a skill, I recommend everyone takes an acting class somewhere in their life, like an acting class at a university or college, or someone whose goal it is just to teach you acting, not to get you to sign up for another course or not to enroll as a coach. Just a class where they'll teach you the basis of acting, and mostly theater acting. And I think it's awesome for everyone to learn this because, as you just said, communication is our base skill. Doesn't matter what field you work in. We communicate as a way of getting through life. We are social animals. We measure our success based on how we interact with other people. And so communicating is like the basis of how we interact. So I think anyone is better off taking some of these skills. But the cool thing is that we all know how to act. A lot of people sort of think, there's an acting world out there that I need to somehow learn about and peel back the curtain and peer in and sort of learn what they're doing so that I can learn those. But the truth is we know those things. We act on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, one of my two favorite skills, two of my three favorite skills, improv and acting, and then education, we improv every day. Life is an improv. Life is an improv. It doesn't get any more basic than that. And acting, we do not every moment of every day, but we are acting consistently to ourselves, to others, all the time. So learning how to do these things is not a matter of putting on something totally different that we have to struggle into and figure out. Rather, it's like an old comfortable sweater that you just need to see in a different way and go, oh, these are the skills I use all the time. Get to some more...
You're tapping into other areas. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the actor. I studied a little acting in high school and then undergrad school, did some and loved it to pieces. But it's like you're just becoming more of the real you that's there. It's like, well, I don't want to act. I'm going to be the real me. Well, you're different people. When you're on the stage, for instance, speaking, you're going to have a different part of you that comes out versus when you're talking to, say, your child, when you're having a moment when you got to talk to them about something or helping them, or you're maybe correcting them something, or talking to your spouse or a loved one. It seems like what you're doing is you're bringing out different aspects. Would that be correct?
Totally. I mean, what you're describing is different roles. So there's different ideas about acting as well. Like I tend to, I believe in the acting sort of model that we all have all of the world, the universe inside of us. So if I need to act like a murderer, I don't need to go out and murder someone to figure out how to be a murderer. I just need to tap into the parts of myself that feel like murdering people at times. And we all have those feelings because we're all human. And so what you're describing is like the different roles that we take on, which is another way of thinking about acting. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The way we act to our kids, the way we act to our partner, the way we act to people on the street are all different aspects of the roles that we imagine for ourselves. So working on acting, I was saying, is a skill that we all have, and you were repeating that back in a different way, which was awesome, by saying we all know that roles change. Who we are in those roles as a result changes. Therefore, we show different parts of ourselves. That is just another type of acting.
Yeah, it seems like that works no matter what we're doing, who we are or where we are. We can do it. Matter of fact, one of the things a lot of our viewers I know are writers. They write for books. They do authoring. They're journalists, etc. A mutual friend of ours, Dave Lieber, down in Dallas, a wonderful guy who is a writer. He works for the Dallas Morning Paper there and does a lot of work. He's been a journalist for, I guess about 1,000 years now. Studied in school and everything. He's really, really good. And he also works in acting. Tell us how authors can use acting and how that would work in a medium that might not seem like it works that way initially.
Well, I mean, I think there's different ways of answering that question. One of the ways, one of the sort of the obvious ways to me is that I'm a writer. So when I'm working on any project, I act my way through it. Like when especially when I work with partners a lot, especially when we come to an area that's challenging, like that all of a sudden we're like, we're not quite sure where the scene is supposed to go, or we sort of lost track of what we're trying to achieve by writing a bunch of funny things or whatever. The way to bring it back or the way to explore more is to actually just get up on your feet and do it. And whether you're a real actor or not, getting up on your feet. And again, I talk about movement a lot because, it's harder to do it when you're sitting down in your head. As a matter of fact, I think it's really hard to do it when you're sitting down in your head, which is, if I'm not mistaken, pretty much most of the way writers come up with things. They sit down and they, in their head, think of things which they then write down. So whenever I get into trouble, my partners and I get into trouble, or just to supercharge what's happening in your writing, we just get up and start acting out the scene. And it is, this is like a standard workshop procedure in theater, right? So you want to workshop your show. What you do is you get a bunch of actors into the room with the writer and maybe a director, and you get them up on their feet and you get them to actually act it out and then improv around the scene, because it's amazing what improv will unlock. And so from that point of view, that's sort of one answer in terms of writing, how I think writers can use acting. But the second way, which is I think a deeper and more important way maybe, is that writing is acting. Right? What you're doing is you're creating new situations that you're putting people in, and, as you're writing, you're creating realistic or hyper-realistic, depending on the style, responses to what's going on, which is really just another way of just talking about acting. You are in a situation and you figure out what you need to do to get what you want from the beginning of the scene to the end. So I think that, like acting, I think that any writer who hasn't taken an acting class is doing themselves a monstrous disservice.
Interesting.
Like themselves, because it's like saying, I'm a writer, but I'm only ever going to write with things that come out of the right side of my brain, as opposed to the left side. Like, why would you limit yourself to half of what you can come up with? So to me, acting and writing are like this. They are as close, acting and directing are like this, and acting and speaking are like this, and acting and life is like this. That's how I see it.
Yep, I hear what you're saying. Very important. Well, let me go even deeper, because what you're saying is powerful. And I know those of you that are watching this, a lot of you are writers, and you're writing, you're communicating that way. Think with me and go through this as Roger and I talk about this now to really help you. As a matter of fact, Roger, what I'm going to do is give you something really practical for me. I'm a journalist. As you know, I write for business journals. We've got 43 papers, coast to coast, and I'm writing, always trying to come up with ideas. And often I might talk about concepts or a way to move forward. It's nonfiction, so I'm talking about that. Let's suppose I got to write about hypothetically, let's say I've got the new Oodly Boodly, which is out from Acme Widgets, and the new Oodly Boodly, I want to write about that. It's an object. It's something that can help people in business. I kind of like it, so I want to write about it. What would be a good way to use some skills from acting to help me write about the new Oodly Boodly, so that I can make this really electrifying and fun and informative for my readers?
Well, I think that that's a great question. I think fun, to go slightly off track for a second, I think fun is really important as well. I think fun is, one of my talks is called The Power of Play. I
like it.
Yeah, the play is the most like one of the basic building blocks that we go through life with. And when we play our way through life, we unlock all sorts of new ideas, new energies, and because of the way our brains work. So this is a neuroscience thing. When you play is one of the most effective ways of firing everything up in your brain.
Ooh,
so if you
good
want
point.
your brain firing on all cylinders, you want blood flow and oxygen, and you want as much like electrical energy firing between synapses as you can have, what do? You play. You have fun and you play. You want to increase what you learn, you play. You want to increase how you connect to people, you play. That's not the only way. There's other ways as well, but that is one of the best ways of doing it. So coming around to what you're talking about, the oodly boodly, which I understand is wonderful.
Yeah, it is really good. You can get 2 of them for the price of 3 right now.
Fantastic.
It's it's a unique concept.
Yeah, who can resist that? You must be a marketer.
Yes.
So like I would say that there's like, one of the things that you can be doing that's really basic acting that people wouldn't even think about as acting, but I think of it as acting, would be just to like when you're to actually start using it, like to sit down at your desk or stand up from your desk and actually pick up the thing, walk around the room, go show it to other people, interact with them, say, like pretend like, if you're let's say you're a business user who's like, 57, he's, had a 30-year career, his company is at the stage here, he has this that's come in the door, how would he use it? Like there's a perfect acting exercise where all of a sudden you're role playing / character, doing character work that will help you see the product in ways that you might not have, but a version of you, this 57-year-old version of you, that blah blah blah, might see it. So like, there's lots of ways like that, like role playing / character stuff, where you could lock into more ways of writing about it. But I also think that let me think what else I think about this.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. Really good. And for those of you that are watching this, that are writers, think about that. What Roger just said can really help you. This thing that people talk about called writer's block, well, hey, get up and move around. Start working with it. And this correlates what you're saying, Roger, so much with a little bit of study. I'm a rank amateur at it in neuroscience, the neuroplasticity of the brain, how we're constantly renewing it and bringing it around.
Yes.
What you're talking about helps us to do that. And yes, it'll help in the writing. So, wow, I mean, this already is very valuable. So, but keep going.
Yeah, well, so back to off of what you just said in terms of movement, I think of movement in acting and movement in improv, movement and life. Like I think of those things as going very closely together, although we don't do that in our business world anymore. We don't really do that in any part of our world. Even, classes are not like that. Instead, they're set up to be the opposite of that, where you sit in very rigid. I'm talking about all classes, like, like a speaker, when a speaker's on the stage talking to a group of people versus like, grade 1 class. They're all geared towards experts on the stage, talking to other people and inputting information into their brain, which is supposed to lock in there and change the way they see the world, the way they interact with the world. To me, that's a back-assward way of going about putting yourself in that situation.
Yep.
Rather, get up and move around. I really believe that movement and learning, movement and thinking are connected. So back to writing. I rarely experience things called the thing called writer's block. Part of the reason is I work on a variety of different things, and when I feel something that sort of closes up for me, I just turn my attention somewhere else. I really believe in trusting our brain. I really believe that we have our brain, not I believe, this is the case. Our brain is a problem-solving machine, so if we let it solve problems, it will do that. So when I get into trouble in areas as a writer, I tend to do the same things. 1, I get up and I move around. 2, if that doesn't help enough, I get out of whatever space I'm in and I get into nature, which really helps our brains as well.
Yes.
Interacting with nature, and I walk, and when I walk, I often start the walk by thinking of the problem. This is where I'm at with my writing, and this is where I haven't gotten beyond. Then if anything occurs to me as I'm moving, I let those thoughts go through, and I'm an actor, right? So when I walk, I often act as I walk. So what I'll do is I'll start to recreate the situation of the scene, or even the paragraph that I'm stuck on. I'll recreate it in my mind, and then I'll start moving around it. Like as I'm walking, I'll start thinking at it from a different angle, and I'll start putting on to myself character choices that will change the way I'm walking, all with the idea of I just want more stimulation. I want more ideas. I want more things and more ways to look at the problem. And then I do what I consider to be the most important thing. I stop thinking about it. When I get to a point where I go, my head is hurting, I would rather just look around, or I notice that I've stopped thinking about it and I'm just enjoying my walk.
Yes.
That is when I just stop and I let it. I don't stop walking. I continue walking. I stop thinking and I let my subconscious take over. Because, Terry, as a writer, you know that somewhere in that walk, or somewhere at the end of that walk, or half an hour later, or that night when I wake up in the middle of the night with or when I'm brushing my teeth, somewhere in that period of time, I will have an answer that will present itself. And it might not be the right answer, and it might not even be a good answer, but it's an answer which I can grab onto and use as a handhold to find other answers.
Yeah, you're cooperating with your brain, because our brains work that way. You're just going, okay, brain, I can't figure this out right now consciously, so you take it over from here. I'm going to go look at the sunrise. I'm going to watch the birds out here in the nature, or I'm going to enjoy, if I'm in an office, I'm going to do that, and just kind of let it go. And then it's wonderful how our other than conscious brain, subconscious, or however we're going to call that wonderful part of us, it just suddenly starts working on it. And then at the weirdest time, usually I find something about it in the shower. When you're around water. I mean, I'm in Florida here. We swim a lot, so I'm out in the water swimming around. I'm thinking, whoa, that's a good one. And it seems to work that way. So thank you. What you're saying there really, really helps us a lot.
Like in a way I sort of went off there, because that wasn't so much acting. I mean, movement isn't acting, but movement isn't far from acting. And if you let yourself move, you will find that, and I say things a lot about, I talk a lot about things like, let yourself, if you let yourself move, because we are the ones that stop ourselves. We're the ones that go, I'm in a meeting, I should be showing respect to the person over there, and I will sit, even though my body is all requiring me to move because there's ideas coming, but instead I sit still, and guess what happens? Those ideas tend to float away. Anyway, I'm a big believer in movement, and I think acting is very close to that. Maybe you should ask me another question, because I'm just
I think that your idea of movement is really important. And so I'm going to go back to the writers that are watching this. Think about that. Next time you get that writer's block, or you just want to tweak it and you want to make it even better, get out there and try movement. Try the movement. Let your mind go. Let it do some things like that. I think that can be very helpful. Well, Roger,
and go see movies.
Go see movies. That would be good as well. I find some of my greatest stories, the one I talk about a lot in my keynote presentations, comes from a movie that I was watching about the Christmas time of the year when things slow down a little bit. I was watching. There I was, hardly bothering anybody, watching a movie, and it just suddenly hit me. I thought, whoa! I actually got up, hit the remote control, and paused it. Went over and found some paper and wrote it down there on the dining room table, and then from there grew the seeds of something that has generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for me. So that's a good thing. But I want to go on, because we could keep going like this forever and ever. We might have to someday doing this. But I want to get a couple of points that, as we're kind of ending our time here, that acting lessons that we can use in business, in professional speaking, in writing, or however we're interacting in business. If you have like 2 or 3 important points that we can borrow from acting that would be very helpful, what would they be?
So do everything out loud. And out loud means either verbally out loud or written out loud. So again, most of us feel that we have to maintain whatever imaginative world, or whatever dialogue that we're having as we're sort of figuring things out. Most of us feel, because of society, that we need to do that inside our head, as opposed to outside of our head. But inside of our head is a very dangerous world. Because inside of our head, all sorts of things will grab onto ideas and push them in areas that they don't really need to go into, like issue-driven areas or fear-driven areas, whatever. We need to get things out of our body. This is why in acting, we rehearse. Like we actually have a process that we actually have to commit to that gets us to do what we're thinking outside of our heads and showing the world. It is so important to get things into the world so that you can actually have more of a chance of being somewhat objective about them. So out loud. And that is acting, because most of us will need to put on a personality to do that. Because most of us will feel internally, I feel very uncomfortable about this.
Yeah.
So I will not do it. I will instead sit at my desk and I will do things internally, quietly, and then wonder why, that there hasn't been a lot of growth in what you're doing from before. It's just sort of more of the same because you haven't changed things. You left it inside your head, and as a result, your demons are the ones that are deciding, how they are going to come out to the world. So get things out into the world. Talk, write. Talk. That's the harder one for most people. Writers don't usually have a problem doing this, but even this needs to be done in the world at a certain point. So one of them is talk. The second thing from acting, get comfortable being uncomfortable. This is my number one rule. I have Roger's rules that I do as part of my talk. This is my number one rule. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And this is an acting thing, again, because we don't like it when we're uncomfortable. We take it as a sign that we shouldn't be doing it. I am uncomfortable, therefore I shouldn't do this. I will do something else instead that makes me more comfortable, that is safer. So this is an acting thing because, again, you need to put on a persona. You need to put on a different version of you, a bigger, stronger, more courageous version of you that doesn't care about what other people might be thinking or saying. Instead, cares more about the idea, right? So cares more about what you're actually coming up with than how the people in your life or just around you are going to react to the process, because the process is messy. We write bad things usually before we write good things, right? We don't want to share those bad things because then people will think that we're bad. But I believe acting, writing, creating means sharing, being vulnerable, and sharing what starts off as often bad and ends up hopefully being good. But that's an acting choice. Like, it's hard for us to do it personally because we have all of our demons. But if we go, I'm putting on a character here. I'm just going to be a guy that says these things out loud for the next 24 hours or for the next 20 minutes or whatever. I'm going to be that guy. That's acting. And if you can corral that energy, very little will stop you, I believe. So talk out loud, get everything out loud. If possible, tape it and watch it. That's even more powerful. Get it out loud, tape yourself while you're doing it, and then watch it a whole bunch of times. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then this is sort of acting and sort of personality based, and sort of neuroscience based. The last one I'm going to leave you with is fight to be positive.
Fight to be positive, because when you are getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and when you're doing stuff out loud, you're going to have a lot of discomfort, and discomfort makes you create things that will stop you from doing it. So whether those are real or not, you'll create things that will tell you, I'm uncomfortable, so stop. So to fight back in those moments when you're doing stressful things, like talking out loud when you don't normally, or doing a presentation or talking to someone about something that you normally wouldn't, you're vulnerable in that moment, you have to fight to be positive, because stress, we all have a potent mix of stress, like hormones that we release. I get angry when I'm stressed is one of my go-to. Most guys have go-to anger. What you need to do is you need to counterbalance that with your fight to be positive. So even if you're not sure, even if you think that person over there is looking at me and
making judgments because I'm talking out loud and I'm saying ideas that aren't quite finished, so they're weaker than they should be. Even though that's happening, I'm going to fight to believe that they're not thinking I'm an idiot, and instead I'm going to believe that they see a genius at work with process. So you fight to be positive so that you don't stop yourself again from doing the things that you are capable of doing. It's just that you don't regularly do.
Sage words of advice. Excellent advice. Roger, we really appreciate that. Well, I'm not going to let you get away without finding out how people can get in touch with you and how they can access the resources you have. And by the way, those of you that are watching this, here is a man that really can help you a lot. You want to follow this person, get to know him, see his information, visit his website, and yes, be willing to part with some coins to learn from him in a profound way how he can help you. Roger, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, probably the best way is to go to my new branded company. It used to be go to my website. You can still get there by going roger@rogerhaskett.com. So if you forget everything else and you just remember my name, it's, roger@rogerhaskett.com. But my company that sort of pulls all this together, sort of entertainment, education, speaking, acting, pulls it all together, is called Engagement Unlimited. So you could write me at roger@engagementunlimited.ca. We're Canadian, so it's .ca, or just go type in Engagement Unlimited. We're, as far as we know, we're the only company that's actually talking this language. We spent the last year deciding whether or not we are going to come up with a name, and whether we're going to have a name that actually represents what we do, because what we do is sort of unique now, by looking at things through the engagement filter. There's not a lot of companies that do that. So if you go to that website, you'll see a range of things that we do. Like I said, totally acting-based, entertainment-based, education-based, speaking-based. And that will give you, I think, probably the best idea of sort of what's going on in my head. I think that's sort of the best way.
Sounds very good. Well, there's a lot of wonderful things bouncing around in your head, and we can benefit from that and have today. So thank you very much for joining us for this time together. And for those of you watching this, get in touch with Roger. He is a person that can help you, and you know how to reach him now. So do that. And I'm Terry Brock. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for interviewing me. Thanks for the great questions.
You bet, Roger. Always good to see you, my friend.